Yes, Vermont. Well, this is where I've lived for the past 40 years. And there's now Studio South, and this is where I came from this morning, where it was 75 degrees. This is in Delray Beach, Florida. And for the past 10 years, I've been splitting my time. I had an academic position at Florida Atlantic University, and I sort of got into winter there and being there and doing a lot of projects there. Just in terms of what I'm going to do now is just go through a whole bunch of images quickly to give you a range of the work. So this is a piece from the late 1970s collection, Museum of Modern Art. Again, a piece in the collection of the Guggenheim. This is in the 1980s. And then another aspect of the work, public projects. This is the Denver Airport. Concourse C wraps around as a garden, very specific feeling to changing what an airport feels like. If you go there, you can see the McDonald's, you can drop some of your French fries in there. There's birds flying around. Landscape is a part of my work. This is a project in Stuttgart, Germany. It's a memorial garden. It relates to, it's called For Those Who Survive, retellings for those who survive. There's two streams that come into this garden, and it flows through the hillside. Behind it is actually the rubble from the bombing, and that was brought there in the 1940s and then has grown up, so it's a certain kind of natural survival as well as our human survival. And the water is actually being treated from the parking lots above, so this is when stormwater runs through this. It settles into these pools before it, and the sediment settles out before that water flows on. Okay, and again, another detail from that, another detail of the stepping of the gardens. You step into the woods, you can sit down. This is very much within the city limits. It's a park area, so you hear water everywhere, but you actually don't see it. I mean, you see the water, but you don't see it flowing, but you can hear the flow of the water. Projects that actually create landscapes and also places to enjoy those landscapes. So this is in Vermont. Okay, so the other part of this pavilion, which you know what I'm pointing, and another part of the pavilion. Okay, Parker Huber's here. Parker's house is in the lower right. So architecture, we're doing projects that are the Cohen Collins house, which was so featured in the Boston Globe. Parker's house is an architectural record house of the year in the late 90s when it was built. The Cohen Collins house is in Northampton. On a larger scale in architecture, Whole Foods Market. I've been working with Whole Foods Market in the Florida region, and we developed a whole set of guidelines for their stores that become more environmental in their experience of the outside, the shopping center itself, and the buildings themselves, letting a lot of natural light in, a lot of plant material, etc. I'm not going into detail of these, and usually in a lecture we would go through a whole set of slides about each of these projects, because I want to focus on a few that I'm going to get to. So this is really giving you a sense of what the studio works on. In Prague, was invited actually as an artist to have an exhibit after the country opened up, after the Soviets left, and it seemed more important to me to bring the sense of an artist coming and questioning and asking what did the city need then, and one of the greatest needs had to do with this water treatment facility, and which you're seeing in the photo. The water treatment facility is located right in the center of the city, and built by the Soviets in the 1960s. Every time there is a rain event, the water facility floods and polluting the river. Terrible situation. How could we address that? I was asked by the mayor at that time and the person who was head of public works, and do it in a way that this water treatment facility, the sewage treatment plant, could remain on its site and still be part of the city and not have the odors and various aspects that would make you want to move this away. Moving it away meant spending close to $1 billion. So we, Rockefeller Foundation, supported a joint effort which we led from the studio to rethink and come up with not only technical but also planning around this whole area that would revitalize. It started with the Imagining a Riverfront Site plan, which was to really introduce the community to the fact that we owned it. The community wasn't aware that that piece of land behind the museum, right next to the bridge that goes over to New Hampshire, at that time had just become part of community property. What could it be and what did the community want to do with it? So Imagining a Riverfront Site was really a process that looked at this site and said to the community, let's get your feedback. So this was a very interesting, very successful community process that went through to the select board, showing different ideas that the community came up with. And if it goes forward, so this is just an example, and not too different from what has started to happen there. The archery building remaining, other buildings taken down that had tremendous problems with them, brownfield site that needed to be capped, and creating an access. And then this developed further into a second project which happened more recently and was funded by the National Endowment for the Arts through, again, Center for Community Solutions. These are all available in the town, by the way, or through Wyndham Regional Planning, if you wanted to see what they are. This is a very more detailed vision plan that really shows what development could mean on that property. What would be the costs of it? And some of the things that have gone forward that you know about today, for instance, is the archery building now being considered for a use. And a group will go in, and I don't know which group has been chosen, if that's still in the process. And then for Bellows Falls, looking at a site that is, again, a brownfield site, very amazing place that had the first industrial complex of that area that everyone's moved out. The Historical Society is there. And again, a planning study that was part of the Center for Community Solutions. A few students from Marlborough worked with us on this as well, and has become a planning tool for the city. There's also, in the work that I'm doing, work with infrastructure. And here's an example of an infrastructure project that's actually public art and sculpture. And this is the construction of a flood wall in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And then the final project built out, it becomes basically a flood wall sculptural piece that is treating the plant material as picking up sediment from the street. So it's a stormwater water treatment that goes through the sculpture before that water reaches the river. It allows people access to the water and the riverfront, which they'd never had, and it actually became a catalyst for a whole new approach to Grand Rapids riverfront. Very successful project. Another project that sort of put our studio on the map in the early 90s is this is a recycling center for Phoenix. And again, I would give like an hour lecture on this whole process and what this project was. But really changed the meaning of infrastructure, the way people thought of places like wastewater treatment places, garbage facilities, electric power plants. What is their relationship to a community? This is a place where thousands of school kids now go and understand the importance of recycling, the relationship to landfilling, their own relationship to waste, and how they can bring that message home and get their parents doing things. And just a very, a very cool project that got nominated. I mean, it was, New York Times chose it one of the best projects of its year in architecture, and it was a waste facility, so that was really great. Put a lot of those issues on the map.
Michael?
Yes?
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I think there's a really important point about the Phoenix
Yes, please.
facility, and that is that you were originally hired under I think a 1% for the art
That's right.
legislation to beautify a facility that was basically out of an engineer's design book.
That's right.
And Michael and a colleague ended up actually designing the
We
facility.
designed the
So
whole
I
facility.
just say that because I think it says something so important about the role of the artist
Yeah.
in reconceiving an entire place and creating it in the public imagination.
Yes, and I think one of the very important things here too is that you know, it's not that the colleague was another artist. We were both chosen. We put together the team that had the expertise to take our ideas and bring that forward, and that's what I'm also going to talk about. Power plants. So as a result of that, that's a power plant in New York. We came up with a vision of this. That's across the way is Con Edison's power plant. We came up with a vision for this power plant that basically changed the way people thought about what a power plant could be in an urban area. Here you're seeing it, and it's all of the exterior greenhouses, and the heat that's wasted from the production of the power is transferred to the walls and then into the greenhouses, and they're growing plant material. So this is an urban agricultural project. I'm sorry, let me just go back. That led to infrastructure and community, which we were asked by Environmental Defense Fund in New York City to help do a white paper basically that talked about how infrastructure, and those two quick projects that I showed you, how they can affect a community and the kinds of things that need to be taken into account if a project like this is brought into a community. So this booklet has gone out across the country to developers of infrastructure, to communities and public works officials, and also to community activist groups who are also struggling to get the right thing to happen in their community. And an example of this is actually the work for Solid Waste Authority in Palm Beach County. This is the first waste-to-energy power plant to be built in this country in 20 years. And the authority, based on our work in Phoenix, based on our work in New York and other power facilities, asked us to develop a plan that would show how this facility, and you can see the scale of this. This is a $700 million project that will be transforming waste to energy in the most safe and environmentally responsible way in terms of any kind of pollution that comes out of that incineration, creating electricity for over 40,000 homes, etc. But what are the opportunities for this facility to become really an instructional place for the community, for the surrounding, for the nation, for other people who are going to come and see this, and how does it impact its environment around it? So our work was to put that together. Maybe we leave that door open so we get some fresh air in as well. Thank you. So in the concepts of that, we're looking at what the walls can do, how we can increase the energy, collect water off of this. We're actually collecting enough water from this facility to not take water out of the system, out of the natural system, by taking water off the roofs and harvesting it. How to make a visitor center where young kids, older, all ages can come and understand the issues, similar to the Phoenix project, but much more involved and directed. And the construction has already started on it. All right, so the West Palm Beach Waterfront Commons, this is the waterfront of West Palm Beach. It's almost a mile of waterfront, and we were the group that was chosen with a team to design this place and rethink it. And in order to do that, just to give you a sense, the studio connects to a whole bunch, we call it a satellite model, where all kinds of professions are connected to a project and how we're going to address a project. So it isn't just, this isn't like Michael Singer figured this whole thing out, but there's a central role the studio plays. And leadership role in that as well. We've got it figured out, thank you. And then this process, and what you're seeing here is basically a series of disciplines. This would be more possibly connected to the academic realm, where you take whatever the project might be, and each of these disciplines, instead of saying there's one mind coming in here creating something, each of these disciplines ends up coming up with ideas that add to the overall. And the project itself, as I show it, if it goes forward, you'll begin to see how those kinds of groups come into play. So what we're given when we started this project, the waterfront in West Palm Beach was built in the 1960s, very, very much that era of put a roadway. In fact, it's almost 6 lanes of road, and you can see 1 or 2 cars on it. Very few people use it even, but everything was hard-edged against the water. This is called the Commons area. This is downtown, and there's a main street that leads to it. So the first things we did was to take this building out so the downtown area could actually have access to the waterfront. And here's what happens. We moved the road back. We still had to we were able to get them to narrow it a bit. You can see how many cars are on it. So now it's 4 lanes with a median, and we got all of this area to become part of an esplanade and beach area, and change the whole nature of how the city could relate to this waterfront. The Commons itself now, that building is gone, so it all opens into it. This new pavilion, solar powered, etc., and it goes on and on. Just in the history here you have the 1960s, and this was a paved world. When we came into it in 2003, 2004, you'd only see people jogging in the very early morning or evening because there wasn't even any shade, hot and hard edge. And also, this whole hard edge of the Lake Worth Lagoon, the intracoastal, hitting up against that hard surface is a big problem in terms of environment and how it deals. Taking a look back in history, so our historian goes through all the records and finds, you know what, this was once an extraordinarily beautiful, heavily planted place. So we look at that, and from that, and if this would go forward, wow, technology, come on, okay. So here's a rendering. This is not the real thing, but this is what we envisioned this esplanade becoming. This is what it became. And here, this happens all along the way of that mile. There are different moments and feelings and places where you can be. And this, you remember those first images, this was all the roadway and hardscape. So, geez, this is really, and again, another view of it, of the Commons, and you can see again, this is the main street coming through. So this is the area for all kinds of big public activities, and they have big tent shows and boat shows, et cetera, et cetera. The pavilion, the Lake Pavilion, is a citizens building, a place for people actually rent it for weddings and all kinds of events, and then it's used for exhibitions, et cetera. So again, when events are happening on Saturdays, there's farmers markets, there's music, there's all kinds of water features. There's like 6 or 8 of them throughout the park that we designed. Very active farmers market, very important to have trellises and shades. So this has become a very, very heavily used part of the city. Early evening on a weekday. And I'm going to show you a little bit more of our analysis, but I just want to give you a sense of what this place is now today as a result of the work that we did. And it was our design, my design is a lot of these are the water features, all these things that you're seeing in the physical realm, they all have the water is there to create different kind of sound for people as well, and touch experiences, how it is at night and the lighting of it. And again, the pond pavilion as an open place for the public to have different activities. This one's a particular art event that's going on.
Did you design the pavilion?
Yes, we've designed
It looks like you.
We designed everything you're seeing here is part of our design. And again, I'm going to focus right now, and you see how the city is laid out between this Lake Worth Lagoon. This is another water feature behind it, the area of the commons, and then we're going to go to the outside of the edge, the water side, which we've had quite an effect on in the environmental range, designing the central pier and 2 other launch areas. So once again, just to reinforce the team effort. So in our study, when we first began in that booklet, we're looking at this whole area, and we define and find out where all of the sensitive salt grasses are. We find that these blue areas, and especially this one, is representing a borrow pit. That's where they dug and took the land out to create the Flagler Drive, that whole road in the edge in the 1960s. And what we find out is that hole is actually creating a huge pollution problem. The water isn't circulating. So the water is still in those areas. And we look at also where stormwater is coming out in all areas of the intracoastal, and this is our project area here. So stormwater moving into the intracoastal is also creating problems. And what can we do? What is the benthic habitat there? So our team is also involving sciences and helping us understand how the edge condition, we're looking at here a series of questions that we did drawings to give to our engineers, to science folks, to say what would be the best edge that could help this water revive. What could we do in the borrow pit that could help that evolve? It turns out this stepping edge is really the most productive of all of them for an edge condition. And again, and you can see it here in this section coming through, and you can see the beginning of our idea for building islands into refilling those holes, those deep holes. And you see some examples from my work, those actually the Stuttgart project, of how the edge, that edge condition could have plant life and oysters start to grow on it, et cetera, et cetera. So this became a very much part of the project and was taken on by, not the city couldn't afford it, but federal and state funds were able to get us to build this floating dock. It's very wide, it's almost like a street in itself, and in the dock are planters. Again, the prototypes of those planters, working in a team to see how we can build those. They have to float, what's the weight, what works, what won't work in it, what kinds of plants are gonna send their roots into the water and then actually start cleaning the water. So seagrasses, mangrove, etc. And you're seeing the finished pier, one of the views at night, and here we are during the day. So this is actually one of the, we don't know of another example in the country or anywhere that has done this, and people are coming out to look at this as an example of how they can deal with using both recreation and function to clean water and to have an effect on a polluted area. Okay, this is again a view of it. Here we're giving the public an opportunity to see an oyster bed that's built into it. So the oysters have come in. The oysters are an incredible filtration system of water. And of course, school groups are coming, and there's all kinds of programs where kids are learning about this, doing water sample testing. So this has become very much a popular place. And again, how do we get there? This is in our early analysis. We're looking at precedents of another project where they filled in the intracoastal. We're showing how those islands could be filled and how they could create a series of island structures that plants can grow on. And then it starts to get built. And we worked with the Department of Environmental Resource Management, and here you're seeing the scale of it. This is what we call the South Cove, and that area is the hole, where the hole is. And our ideas, where we started is here, and where we ended up was the building of these 3 islands. And that configuration of them is the way the science folks and the engineers, environmentalists, figured out the best way to put this together. You're looking now at 2 renderings that we did for them that we then presented to the public and held in a discussion with the public of how this could be achieved. And here you're seeing the building of it, how it's evolving. And again, the scale of this is really something. It took about a year and a half to bring enough fill in to do this. And even as it was being built, the water quality was beginning, they were testing it, and it was beginning to change and getting much more positive. So the whole notion of once it is now planted, here it is finished. This is just recently, and it just opened about a week ago to the public with a boardwalk that goes out to it and information on it so people could understand it. And again, back to our rendering, they built what we drew, and very exciting project. I want to go on to a second one where it's more of an art project, but the art project developed out of a need for asking the studio to look at, this is a casino for the Seminole tribe in Coconut Creek, Florida. And this is not a very large piece of land, maybe it's 12, 14 acres, but they're looking to redevelop it into a hotel and a casino, et cetera, and they're wondering how can we incorporate green technology and make it also art. And we're giving them examples, sorry, just gonna go back quickly, giving them examples of places all around that could address these various issues of energy and water and air quality and public information, and ideas from different projects that have been done in other places of what could happen in this site. They ended up asking us to to do something immediately with the studio about a parking garage. This is a typical parking garage. This is not the parking garage, but that's what you'd expect to be built. And they didn't want this. The city wouldn't allow it either. And so they said, so what could a parking garage be? And that was the question we were asking, questioning the assumptions of, it's not just about putting cars away, but what could a parking garage be productively for energy, for collection of water, for filtration systems of water, etc. And these were our initial drawings for it, and what it could be like, and how it could perform other possibilities, how it could actually grow the plants, the flowers, the decorative flowers that they use in the casino on the parking garage levels. And so it ended up that they said, yes, let's go forward with an idea here and create a sculptural piece that is actually a biofiltration wall. This has just been built, and you're looking at a rendering of it. I'm just going to go through some of the aspects of the wall. Again, it's a water filtration system. It's 4 stories high. There's a lot of information for the public about what it's doing, so it's a learning center as well. Here we are in construction of pieces of it. This is very large. It's all done in precast concrete, and the studio does a whole set of drawings for it. And here it is built. You're seeing a section of it with the water coming through filtration. It's taking water that's coming from the parking garage when there's a rain event, goes into a retention pond area, and then is pumped back and refiltered through this system. This is when it was first built, so these plants are actually growing up all of these, the edges, you know what I'm saying, the mesh. So it's a lattice of planting, and then the patterns of the concrete, etc. And again, the information area down below that water is collected and recycled. It's all run by solar that's on the roof, so this whole pumping system is not taking energy out of the system, and it's become a very important element for the community and for the area around to see what can a parking structure be. Again, a reminder. Want to just go through a project here that is again, a noted project that I got involved with a team. This is a project in the Netherlands. It's the Altera Center for Environmental Studies. It's the European Union Research Center. And this is the design of both, working with the design of the building and the landscape and the interior spaces and how they all interconnect. So the team is looking at how, first of all, water, creating this water feature, this pond that's taking all water from the building. It's gray water, not sewage water. So storm water or water coming out of sinks or showers, and treating it through that system. There are bioswales, which are parking areas, so the water can filter into that. The building's built around the central courtyards, two very large atrium spaces, and each of those spaces is heavily planted, so the plants create air and cool and air filtration, as well as these water features as a secondary treatment. That water comes from the pond into that area. The atrium spaces, again, very heavily planted, very green. So every office is looking out onto the garden in the interior, or you're looking out on the exterior. It could be, this could also be a college building, a dormitory, that whole central courtyard area. It could be growing food for the community, etc. Here is the final treatment of the water, and working very closely with the scientists in the center. And here they actually are testing shallow-rooted plants and understanding how they can finish and polish that water. That's what the finished clean water is. It drips down into the deeper cistern and then gets recycled into areas of the building for the toilet use. So I'm going to just now talk about, and then we'll be done, two projects that are related to the academic realm. So as an eminent scholar at Florida Atlantic University, I taught a class called Creative Thinking in the Public Realm. My students are basically the team. These were PhD students actually in a program called Public Intellectuals. And this project took on, we identified in the community a problem, the community being the campus. And this is a problem. This is actually the arts building.
Oh.
And here you are in Florida, and there's it's a place for that garbage can, basically. And the water itself, the retention pond, they put chemicals in it to kill the stuff that starts growing. And one of the first things that we do in a project like this is look for the precedents. And here's a fabulous precedent of the South Florida Water Management organization. They're building, and they actually built a very similar situation of a retention pond that was naturalized, so it filtered the water. They didn't need to put chemicals in it. It also related very closely to the building and their use of the building. So the reimagining of this is taking those students, and each of them took on an aspect of this and said, how could we rethink this place? And here's one of the renderings that came out of it. Let's go. And a second, the before and the after, the idea of what can happen if we just create some shade, if we do something with the walls, if we give people a place to sit that is shaded there. And then also if we plant an edge. Now I went into civil engineering, took it on in another semester. The civil engineering group went out, and their class looked at the whole building and the need for an addition on the building that began to come out through the community. We need to build on to this. So they started to look at this, and these are the engineering students' drawings, by the way, and saw building a sort of almost like a greenhouse or a glass structure outside that people could actually break through the wall and begin to have an exterior. Then they also looked at how the water systems coming off of the roofs could connect to the water system below. The red line is showing a planter system, and that planter is similar to what we did with the docks, where those are freshwater plants and their roots are absorbing the toxins within the retention basin. So the edge becomes a planted edge. And I've got a another one of their slides showing the relationship of the building to its retention areas below. And then the actual drawing of the new addition. This is that planter going around it. So this went forward and was presented to the dean, and then the dean was all excited, presented to the president. The president looked for funding for it, got the funding, matching funds to go forward. So this is in a phased build-out. And it took years. I mean, you saw the first date of transformations, 2002, 2003. And this was done by probably 2008, 2009. And these things, especially in the academic realm, can take some time, but it happened. And I know you've just done your greenhouse, Ellen, and that's a wonderful example of a project coming from student work and community effort and understanding a need. So let's just go. The last one I want to show you is at James Madison University, where I was a visiting scholar, and asked to address, this was a request by the president, to address two projects on the campus with his faculty and with their facilities people. And in each of the, I'm just going to focus on one of them, this is the larger one, and there were probably 5 classes that were involved in this over a full year. And one of the classes took on, they were not full semesters, but a group did the first semester, and then the second semester took the findings of the first semester classes and then moved them forward into their classes. So a whole group focused on the history of this place, which I'm not going to get into, but basically this is in Virginia. This is there's a lot of history, the context of this site and how it's used. So there's a whole group that was doing surveys of students and faculty and their use of this. This is an area of the campus that is a large lawn that was all mowed, and the mowed lawn is actually an environmental invasive and needs a whole other, the opportunity here was to look at this lawn as becoming an opportunity for environmental regeneration, an environmental progressive approach to even making laboratories out of it for growing and studying plant material and seeing how well that plant material works with stormwater retention and soil remediation, etc. So this whole slide is a class that was looking at various areas and understanding the different soil conditions within the sciences. And then the usage, again, I mentioned, in pathways through it. So again, the area is this whole thing. And what came out of this, and in this case it happened very quickly, you're looking at that lawn area. The president was presented this. The students also came up with the challenges that needed to be overcome, problems on this space. And the president said, I'd like you guys to look at this area and let's see what we can get accomplished in one summer and what we might be able to actually do. And so then that second term became very intensive about these various zones and color and what the plant material and natural zones could do and be productive as. So, of course, it became a building of a native prairie. And that native prairie, again, has the educational signage. It has an on-site classroom. That's not, these are in the report, so this is examples of what it could be. So this is, again, students said, this is one of the great places. We don't want to put trees here because we love to sled there. So the kind of plants in the area for sledding were important to be considered. So the whole community's input was involved. And again, referencing all the different groups and classes that were involved in developing this. And it was planted out, and it has now become an important feature of the campus. And that's where I'm going to end the talk. I wanted to have you see the scope of the work. It's not, I wasn't being specific about any of the projects. Do that another time. I really wanted to get to the point of where Ellen is moving the Center for Creative Solutions towards, which is a very similar, it's an institute that can take in a project from the community And that project then invites, we have a number of fellows, and you can go on the website, it's really a wonderful website that Marlborough created for this. So that problem has connected to it in the same kind of diagram, the satellites who should be there looking at that problem. So we have a number of really noted folks who are fellows, and some as are part of the Marlborough faculty as well. And then that project gets brought in and examined, and ideas and opportunities come from that. And the project can then develop into a reality. But it's a gift in many ways, and the group that brings it is also bringing support for it, or we're looking for grant money to help support it. But very few towns like Brattleboro or even cities have the resources to bring that kind of group together. And usually when there's a project, they'll go and hire a planning firm. And a planning firm is going to come back with a set of ideas that are rather generic for the most part, that have been used, they've done over and over again, and okay, this is another place like that. And Center for Creative Solutions looks at every project as a specific perspective. And when you bring the different group, the different thinking, folks from different fields together to look at a particular issue, what can come out of that is something that we really don't see yet professionally in the professional world, but it's something that a lot of people are talking about. And so Center for Creative Solutions is very much at the forefront of developing and helping folks learn that team process. So it's not only the fellows that come together, but we invite participants to apply, and they can also be part of that discussion, which may be a 3-day, 5-day, whatever it might be, period of time where we're all together, everyone has a role to play. So I think, do you want to add to that, Ellen, is that description?
No, I think that you described the vision, and
Yeah.
we're trying to do something very innovative that we've done grant to grant.
That's right. That's right.
Basically. But I think part of the vision is that if we can teach people to work in interdisciplinary teams, and you saw the results in Michael's work, then communities would have very innovative solutions to problems that they're now addressing in a one discipline way.
That's right.
And Vermont, I think, is especially open to Michael's kind of work, which incorporates the environmental aspects with design, history, anthropology,
Ethics.
Yeah, environmental ethics, and so to look at places and their potential in this broad way is a different way of working, but it's very consistent with Marlborough's interdisciplinary way of working, especially if you look at what students do in their plans of concentration.
Right.
So I want to thank you for
Yeah.
contributing your
And
thinking
I'm
to
glad
us.
to answer it, yeah.
As one of the faculty members involved, the discussions around this as it's developed has been wonderfully interesting, and in my mind at least, it ends up being a kind of hybrid between educational experience, both for those who come from towns and cities and communities who learn about this team, Michael's team approach, but also for students who attach themselves to a project. And that sort of hybridizes with real problem solving. And it is not, as Michael's studio is, a kind of professional organization, but more of a hybrid between education and
That's a good
problem
point.
solving,
Yeah.
would you say?
Yeah, the center is not just about, you bring your project and we're gonna give you a product. There's an educational process that this is about, that's why it's at Marlborough. So this is about, students, postgraduate students, young professionals. The one that we did on the waterfront, we had folks from, who had just graduated Marlborough 1 up to people in their 40s who are out working and wanted this experience and came from very different fields. Any other question or?
How are the projects decided on? How do you decide what projects you want to take?
So far, we've kind of found them in conjunction with grant money. I think part of the vision would be to get to the stage where we could actually invite municipalities to come to us
Yeah.
with projects for this kind of treatment. But, you know, Tim's point is really important because you have to be careful not to be competing with professional architects and planners and graphic designers and people in the field. So we have to make a distinction there between what's an educational participatory process and what you might hire a consultant for.
And then one of the issues that is actually positive there is that the work that comes out of the center is more of an opportunities report that shows feasibility and costs, and then the town can go forward and write a project description for a professional, a request for a proposal or their qualifications that has very specific guidelines. So in many ways, what we're doing is helping the community, the town or city, put together their guidelines for how they want to move a project forward, and then professionals can come to the table knowing, oh, these are opportunities that, you know, we're usually not given. So, you know, they're not that clear. So in many ways, we open the door for professionals to be involved in ways that they hadn't been involved before, but I don't think we're competing in that. Yeah.
So I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the process, maybe a step before what we've just been talking about, and that is that the community, some communities would be looking at a project to get a community to initiate this conversation, to look at a project like this, rather than working from, we don't have any money, our budget is already totally stressed out. We need the revenue from the parking spots in the parking lot that could possibly become something like this. To move the conversation into opportunity and resources and assets, rather than from, we don't have the money to start thinking about that. To get people to ask these questions, to entertain the notion of, I wrote down regeneration, I don't know how many times you said that through the course of this, rather than sustainability,
That's
rather
right.
than just fix it.
That's right. Well, I think so if I'm understanding your question, the riverfront project and had three different components. The Imagining the Riverfront, we worked very closely to get people to understand we own it. Let's not think about what we can afford or not afford, but what would we like to see there in our community? The second project that came up was a workshop that actually did have the fellows and did have participants. It went on for 9 days. We worked in the Marlborough Center, the Graduate Center, and the museum, and it culminated with an exhibition. And the question that we were asking in that workshop was, can we give the town a whole set of ideas of what could happen in this place over the next 5 years? Because you could talk about plans that you need a ton of money to create a development, to build a building. Well, what could you do immediately with the resources available and with the organizations that are existing in downtown Brattleboro, the various cultural organizations specifically? And so that exhibition invited the public in. It was very successful. I don't know if you were aware of it or if any of you folks saw it, but it was extraordinary input. And the director of the museum said they had never had such a wide range of public coming into the museum, because this really was about the community. And folks came in and said, I like this or that or that. And so the workshop's role was to put forward possibilities. It wasn't the design, it wasn't a final product, it wasn't something that was also envisioning something way out in the future. It was what could happen today. And people got very excited about that. The charrette process, which is presenting, does everyone know what that is? You've heard the word, okay.
Some don't.
Some don't. Okay, well, who does? Okay, so what it is actually, it's a word that means we do a workshop with the community. The professional or the government official or whoever it might, agency, whatever, brings the project into the community and has an evening event usually and invites a group of people and says, here's what we're doing and we'd like your ideas. Unfortunately, it's become almost, it's a cliche, and we call it a charade. Because it's really, because they've really figured out what they want beforehand, and they know what they want the public to accept. So it gets couched in, do you like red or do you like yellow? And it becomes a discussion about things that really are not at the core of what is possible in a place. So what the most important thing to do, if we do something like that, and it's Center for Community Solutions, CCS, for Creative Solutions does something like that, is to take that process and actually engage the public in the way that we did with the riverfront. What is really possible that you could never have imagined? What's happened in other places that, I mean, we don't know. You know, it's not your job to know. So, but it is our job to help you understand your opportunities. And then you make a decision about those opportunities that you feel meet the most, productive and regenerative aspects of what you want to see a place be. So I just think that, what's very important is that engagement of the community on a real level. And if you then do that, people get excited and they want to see, their expectations change. This also becomes difficult for the government in a community. Because the expectations then question, so you can see how these are delicate balances. And the Palm Beach waterfront, I think there were close to 80 events over those years that engaged the public in a real way. So that the waterfront was able to do things and be something that no one could have imagined if they walked into the room the first day and said, that's what you're gonna end up with at the end. And we couldn't have imagined it either. I mean, it took our research and our meaning the whole team, that group, that big satellite group, coming together to realize, these things could be possible and let's figure them out. And also understanding where funding can come from. And that the city drew a line, and the mayor just said, when we started talking about the piers and the edge condition and the islands, the mayor went, wait a minute, I mean, I love all of this, but I can't put the city's money, our money has to go to this side of the wall, not that side. And we were able to then connect to the Department of Environmental Resource Management, which has a different pot of money to go for. So there's flood mitigation money, there's environmental remediation money, there's all kinds of state agencies and federal agencies and programs that are looking for outstanding projects that are innovative and, of course, feasible, that paid for that. So, I have a wonderful slide that I didn't show with the mayor being handed a check for $1 million by a group that is the Intercoastal Water Association. They have a very big organization, and they're all about boating, and their about citizen awareness and cleaning up the water. And this was a project, they said, we are gonna give you support, and they also gave them support to do all of the interpretive signage, so that when people go there, they know what they're seeing. It's not just, oh, this is a lovely place, but I wanna understand it. Yeah.
I have a question about how the collaborative environment and the built environment come together. In going from a collaborative systems-based design to construction documents.
Right.
And how do you integrate into the built environment the state-of-the-art best practices that are currently available to us? And how do you integrate into that the systematic approach of looking at updating assessment moving forward to bring best practices and new technologies into that built environment in those specific spaces and interworking bits and pieces? How do you bring that moving forward so that you know that maintenance and updating and assessment goes on?
Well, I mean, I'm hearing a few different questions, and I'll try. I'm not trying to touch.
Yeah.
I'll give you my interpretation of what you're asking me. First of all, all of the concepts, and you say whole systems, and that's a very important word, which I don't think I said in the lecture, but that network that you saw in the satellite, that's about whole systems design. So it's a design that comes from a whole set of approaches, and the systems are energy systems, air systems, so all the mechanical parts of the building, but also the emotional and aesthetic parts of the building are systems too. So one of the things here is there's one place in design, and then there's in construction documents where the design ideas get drawn and realized. And we're working with some wonderful engineers who, a lot of engineers aren't wonderful. But it's very important, and anyone who's interested in engineering is moving more and more. If you talk to deans of engineering schools, their programs are shifting more into interdisciplinary and more into communications issues. And of course they have to know how a bridge isn't gonna fall down, but they also have to understand how systems, all these various systems can come together, and their drawings need to be sympathetic and connect to that. And we're fortunate to have engineers who work with us on every project who have that passion in their work. So that's how is it realized. Now, you're asking, does it get assessed afterwards?
Yeah, part is how is the assessment done as changes in daylighting or interior lighting or solar aquatic waste treatment or what have you, these systems that are somewhat disciplinary in and of themselves. As the building ages and the system ages and the people who are maintaining the system age and turn over, how does that process become part of your design so that it keeps current?
Yeah, I mean, in the sense of the Seminole project, for instance, there's a big document that we put together for how something is maintained. And we're available for those people who are maintaining it, for it to be, to understand that the filters have to be changed. There's a maintenance program. All of that comes with a project. Then you get to the Denver airport, and there you've got a situation where the lowest bidder becomes the person who's taking care of the place, that garden. And the plants die, or they let the irrigation system go, because it's all about, I want to spend the money on it. And then the public starts to say, I get messages from people, and the airport gets messages. That's a space that people love and have actually written a lot about, and they want to see it kept. So they have had to rebuild that project once or twice, because the maintenance was, they didn't do that. They didn't follow those guidelines, but that's not something that I can direct. So, but of course, there's directions to how to do it, but how it gets carried through is, we're out of it.
What drove you to the other side?
Well, that's part of our work, is that, we, you know, we believe very strongly in what we're doing, and I wouldn't just, I mean, I was told to stop, and publicly, I did. I mean, I couldn't make a public presentation and show those pictures and say, in one of those 80 public, you know, events over those years, here's what we're envisioning, that was taken out of the presentation. But I had a private lunch with someone from Durham, who these, you know, one of the other things we do, which is very interesting, when we first got onto the project, the leader of the project is an engineering firm, and I'm not going to mention who they are, because it was tough. And but their approach, and most approaches in these projects, is to go forward and create the, you know, go forward with the program that you're given by your client.
Right.
But we take the program that's given by our client, and then we question it, and we want to know what else is possible, and what don't we know about this place that we could be informed. So we went to all of the environmental advocacy groups in the community, and to this organization, you know, which is a state organization, county organization, Durham Department of Environmental Resource Management, and said to them, if this was your waterfront, and this could be your project, what's the best thing you could see happen here? And those people inform us about the hole. They said this is a huge problem that's causing the death of, it's basically a dead body of water in the South Cove and that whole area. The edge condition, it needs to have a transitional edge. If we could do anything there, it would be that. So I'm just giving you one example. We did that on everything, and that's what we do. So we came back to our team and said, wow, you know, here's something we didn't know, and we should be designing. And they were angry at us. And they said, you can't go. Those organizations are going to end up reviewing our work. And you're going to them before they even have seen our documents. And this should not be a part of our work. This isn't in our scope of work. All those kinds of things that you hear in the contractual world that most of us live in. But the studio lives within its contractual responsibilities, I promise. But we also want to know what's possible. We want to inform our client what they may not know.
So why didn't you get fired?
Because what happened was the Department of Environment, the guy I had lunch with, was the guy who had come to me and said, if you could figure out a way to fill the hole and make that a part of the waterfront project, that would have a huge effect on the whole place and the environment of the Intracoastal in West Palm Beach. And everyone liked that until the moment came where the mayor said, I can't go further with this. So I went to him and I said, she can't go further with it. So he said, let me try to go further with it. So they took the project and went to their funders and their people and said, this idea and your vision has inspired them to move this forward. Then the mayor said, bravo, thank you. You know, we don't have to do, you know, we can't do it, but they can. And then it became part of the whole project.